It's the artists that are willing to actually slow the fuck down and be like, okay, wait, I don't need to be just posting a bunch of shit all the time on this rat race, scrambling to get the breadcrumbs of attention from people. Like, let me take some time to actually really tap into my authentic lane of creativity, really tap into like what actually lights me up. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headliner Mindset Podcast. Today is going to be a special episode because this is the second time ever out of, 80-something episodes that I am doing a solo episode. I just did my first one a few months ago, and a lot of you guys said that you really enjoyed that. So, hell yeah, we're going to start doing more solo episodes. So, if this is one of your first times listening to the podcast, welcome. I'm so stoked that you're here. Please subscribe. We have new episodes coming out every week, every Monday. Usually they're with really badass guests, a lot of artists, managers, some agents. I'm trying to get some more booking agents on the show. And we dive into the business stuff a lot. But, I felt really inspired recently to talk about some of the more woo-woo stuff. For those of you that have been listening for a while, you know that I love to get down with that woo-woo. So that's what today is going to be all about. We're going to talk about flow, because this is really where my whole journey as an artist coach began. I used to teach a class called The Art of Flow at Icon Collective. And it was kind of Icon's secret sauce. It really was what taught people how to get out of their head and into their heart, into their soul, how to really find their own unique, authentic lane of creativity, how to take some risks, how to listen to themselves rather than listening to all the voices of the external world, all of their peers, and of the industry, and paying attention to trends. There's so much shit out there that sounds the same. And when you look at the success of some of the artists that went to Icon, a lot of them will agree that it really was that class. And so I want to share a little bit about that with you guys today. To be honest, I recently found myself becoming a little bit uninspired. And I really love diving into the strategy conversations on this podcast. And it obviously is such a big, important part of the game, right? You need to build a good brand and be good at marketing and build a social media. But like underneath that, if you're not really lit up, if you're not making music from a place of excitement, from a place of passion, if we're not living our lives from a place of excitement and passion, and it's just about how do I create something that's going to be successful and get numbers, it's going to suck. And I noticed that a little bit with myself recently. I was like, man, I'm kind of missing some of that sauce. I need some of that secret sauce back in my own life and in my own journey as a creator as well, as an artist in my own way. Even right now, just sitting down to create this podcast, I'm really practicing some of these principles that we'll get into on this episode, which is really about getting out of the head and not worrying about what are people going to think of this? Am I going to say the right thing? But actually just trying to tune into the present moment and really see like what is there, what wants to come out, what actually feels real and authentic and fucking juicy. When we're just creating from our mind, it's so easy to lack that extra kind of oomph, Where I realized this recently for me, I want to start my newsletter again. It's a great thing just on a business perspective, just to be sending out a newsletter, adding value, just communicating with my audience more, but also letting you guys know about, new coaching programs and letting you guys know about when I have spots open up. It's a great thing that anybody running a coaching business runs. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to start my newsletter. And I honestly was being fucking lazy, and I didn't want to sit down and actually really dig into my own thoughts. And so I just went to ChatGPT. I was like, hey, help me write a newsletter that I can send out to everybody. And fuck, ChatGPT is incredible. It was like in 2 seconds, boom, here you go. Here's a newsletter. I gave it like a couple bullet points. This is what I want to talk about. And honestly, it wasn't that bad. I literally had it all drafted. And I was like, oh, cool, that was easy. From a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense. I can save a lot of time. I can save a lot of energy. Let me just have ChatGPT write my shit. I literally had the whole thing drafted. It was in my email distributor thing, ready to go. All I had to do was press click. And I just noticed this part of myself that was like, dude, you can't send this shit out. Like, this isn't you. There's no heart or soul in this. This isn't actually like my real energy, right? Like, there was no life in it. And I think that happens a lot in music. It's like, cool, we can put all the sounds together. You can grab the fucking, splice samples and put them together. But like, is your heart and is your soul actually in your music? Because if it's not, the branding doesn't fucking matter. The marketing doesn't matter, right? Same thing when you show up to create content. Are you just doing the same shit that everybody else is doing because that's the algorithm, that's the strategy, that's the template? Or are you actually like speaking from your heart and creating from your heart? And I noticed for myself, I'm like, damn, this isn't coming from my heart. And so I didn't send it out. And that kind of planted the seed to a theme that I've been feeling a lot lately. Because the other thing that has been coming to me, and when I say coming to me, it's like there's this little voice in the back of my mind that I will ignore for a while, but eventually I can't ignore because it starts to get louder. I don't know if you call it the voice of your intuition. We'll talk about that more in a moment, but I have been having this feeling that what I've planned on doing, what I was supposed to do, was to launch another round of my Headliner Mindset coaching program. It's my online community. I've got 50 people in it. We still have calls every single week. It's fucking awesome. It's time to launch another round. I was planning on doing that in January, and I was feeling resistance to it because I was like, honestly, I was like, I'm not actually really feeling excited and energized and pumped up by that. But what was coming through and what is coming through is that I wanted to start, and I want to start, a program around the Artist's Way. It's a 12-week workbook by Julia Cameron. Incredible, incredible book. It really is about going deep into your relationship with, let's just call it a higher power. She does use the word God in the book, but it's tapping into the universe, tapping into that spiritual creative energy and really tapping into your flow, how to actually really create from a place not of your mind where you're just sort of recreating the algorithm, but actually tapping into that deeper relationship with yourself, that deeper relationship with the universe, and really cracking open a whole deeper level of creativity. And I've run a couple groups around that in the past, and it's fucking incredible. It's just super powerful. For those of you that have done it, you know. It's also a lot of work. It's hard to do by yourself. Everyone that I know that has done it or has tried to do it, every single person I ever talked to were like, yeah, I made it through the first like 2 or 3 weeks, and then I fell off. Because it's a commitment. And what I have found is that doing that with a group is the way to do it, having accountability. So I've run a few groups of that in the past, like a couple years ago. It's been a while, but there's just this fucking thing knocking on my door right now that's like, yo, it's time to run another group. So those things have been coming up, and I'll talk more about the group at the end of the podcast. But the theme here is that there is this conversation that I haven't been having enough of lately, which is about flow, which is about how do you tap into that part of yourself where you are really creating from your heart and soul, getting out of your head, and bringing your own unique gift to the table and having fun while you're doing it and having it be easy, right? So let's talk about flow. What is flow in the first place? I think on the one hand, there are those moments that most of you have probably experienced when you're in the studio or you're creating whatever your creative process is, and it's like you're in the moment and everything just starts coming through you, right? You get out of your head. You're not thinking about the past or the future, or worried about where things are going. You kind of get struck by that lightning bolt of inspiration what I would call the muse, when the muse visits you and like 2 hours go by and you're like, whoa, holy shit. You're just so consumed by the creative process that time kind of disappears, right? That's what we would call a flow state. A lot of times this happens in sports. A lot of times this happens in physical activities. This what happened to me when I played rugby. Rugby it's an 80-minute game. And there would be times where the game would start and then next thing I know, the game would end. And I wouldn't remember. It was like I blacked out because I was just so in the moment. You have to be in the moment, right? Rock climbers experience this a lot. Like when you're up there on a mountain, you can't think about what am I going to have for dinner tonight and what happened yesterday? What are those bills I have to pay? It's like, no, you're on that rock and you were just thinking about what's the next move I need to make. And so similarly, as artists, when you can find that flow state, it's a beautiful thing. And I think it's something that we all, if you've tasted it before, if you've been there before, we're always craving like, well, how do I get back there? All right, how do I create that? But there's also this bigger element of having flow in your life, right? Having your whole life almost be a flow state, right? It's like when a surfer is out there waiting for a wave, right? Or when a surfer catches the wave and it's just like they pop up and the wave takes them. There is this undercurrent of the mother ocean that just brings them in. And for those, few moments that they're up there, they're just totally present and totally connected. Really, you're connected with nature, right? And that's honestly what this is. It's being connected with the universe, that there is this undercurrent of what I would call life force energy that is permeating every living thing on our planet, every living thing in the universe. Think about it this way. Your heart has been beating since before you were born. Before you came out of the womb, there has been something pulsating life through your body. It's the same life force energy that is making the grass grow outside and making the trees grow. It's breathing life. There is this undercurrent of life force energy that is making its way through every living creature. It's like our nature is to grow. Our nature is to expand. And also our nature is to create. But when we are trying to create everything ourselves, this is where it gets in the way, is like our ego and our mind being attached to trying to do it all ourselves or thinking it needs to look a certain way. When we actually start to learn how to let go of that, there's actually a natural force that wants to come through us. When you see people that have created some of the most, amazing music in the world, or some of the most amazing art, like if you watch people when they accept Grammy Awards, a lot of times they don't even take credit for the song. They're like, this song, I was just chosen to be the vessel that this song came through. I didn't create it. Something else created it. I just happened to be in the room and it came through me. And I think that's one of the big first shifts to starting to get into flow is getting out of your head, right? And getting out of your ego and seeing yourself as the vessel for the creative energy rather than being like, oh, I'm the one that's making everything. It's honestly so fucking egotistical to think that way. It's like, oh, well, look what I created, right? The danger with that also is then we attach our worth to it. If the song does well, we feel really good. If the song doesn't do well, we feel like shit. Well, that's because we are attaching our ego to it. When you remove your ego and you're just like, see yourself as the vessel, I'm just the vessel. Even right now, this whole podcast episode, this isn't me. I'm not creating this. I'm not thinking about this. These are just ideas that have been poking at me, honestly, for probably 2 weeks now. I'm finally surrendering, saying, okay, fine, I'll be the vessel and I'll let these ideas come out. I'm not making this shit up. This is not a script. This is literally stuff that's just coming out right now that I've surrendered to. Right? And in the same way, we can go into the studio or sit down with our instrument and say, okay, what wants to come through me right now? Now, what this requires is presence and stillness and silence, right? We have to slow down. And we have to, again, get out of the head and into our intuition, right? In this example that I'm talking about for myself, there's been kind of like this whisper. There's literally like this calling of these thoughts and these ideas like, hey, you should go start this program. Hey, there's a message that wants to come through. But similarly, it's like that can be, it's music and it's ideas that we have to silence our own voice, our own inner dialogue, and slow down and create some space and create some stillness to actually be able to hear what wants to come through, right? Now, this is hard because we want success and we want it now, right? It's like, oh, I got to grind every day. I got to put out content every day. I got to make tracks every day. Like, go, 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 right? There's that saying that, like, we're not human doings. We're human beings. But we're oftentimes doing so much. But this is a good moment to ask yourself, like, how well is that actually going for you? You know what I mean? Like, are you actually where you really want to be? If you are grinding and you're just living in that space of doing, my invitation is to start to play with slowing down a little bit. This is where I would talk about duality. Like, yeah, we can't just sit around and fucking meditate in our room all day and expect everything to happen. This is that balance of masculine and feminine energy. We still have to do the work. But underneath it, like before you go and really grind, like what are you actually grinding on? Before you go and really, hammer out a track, like is the actual spark and the energy for the song itself even there, right? Or are we just making sounds and noises that don't have any real heart and soul underneath it? I mean, if you think about it this way, 100,000 songs get uploaded to Spotify every single day. How many of them actually have real like heart and soul in them? How many of them are ever even heard by anybody? All right. I guess what I'm really getting at here is to start thinking about what kind of energy am I putting into my project? What kind of energy am I putting into my music? I've had to look at what kind of energy am I putting into this podcast? What kind of energy am I putting into my coaching business? Is it just cool, let's grind and build brands and do marketing? Like a lot of people come to me for wanting help with their project. I'm like, okay, cool. I can do that, but also my heart and my soul is telling me that that's not what I really love. And that's not why I started this shit in the first place. I started this because I was teaching that Art of Flow class and we were tapping into some deep stuff. We were starting to look at, we're starting to peel the layers back and get into these sort of like juicier, deeper levels, which I haven't really gone deep into yet, right? Because I actually haven't really done any solo episodes yet. And so I really wanted to just peel back the curtain and start going down this kind of woo-woo rabbit hole. Because also, I mean, I have also worked with literally like hundreds of artists just as a coach myself, but thousands if we include, 7 years at Icon and Capitol Records and being a manager and all the places I worked before. And it's the artists that are willing to actually slow the fuck down and be like, okay, wait, I don't need to be just posting a bunch of shit all the time on this rat race, scrambling to get the breadcrumbs of attention from people. Like, let me take some time to actually really tap into my authentic lane of creativity, really tap into like what actually lights me up, right? Like, we got to slow down and figure that out and spend some time to catch the wave, right? Otherwise, you're just like paddling out. Imagine if you just paddled out. For those of you that have surfed before, I've only done it a handful of times. It's fucking exhausting. You are paddling out against the current. You got to get out there, and then imagine you just catch the first wave that comes, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna catch that next wave, and maybe you catch it, maybe you don't. And you just got to turn around and you paddle right back out, and then you catch the next wave. That's what a lot of us are doing in our artist journey, right? It's like, let me just throw as much shit as possible at the board and post as much stuff as I possibly can, and hopefully something will work. But, good surfers know it's like, yo, you paddle out and then you wait. You paddle out and then you sit. And then you wait for that current. You wait for that wave, right? And then you really catch the one. And again, there's no right or wrong way to do anything. But I think for those of you that have been paddling and are feeling exhausted and are questioning and wondering, like, man, like, why is this shit not working? Well, there's another way of doing things, which is creating more space in our lives to get out of our head and learning how to develop a relationship with this deeper part of ourselves. So this part of ourselves that I would call our intuition. We could also call it, it's like through our intuition, we start to develop a relationship with the universe, with God, if you want to call it that. But there is this energy out there that we can tap into that will not only bring amazing creative ideas to us, but also into our lives. Like, man, I practice this all the time where just synchronicities happen. It's like doors just open and things just work out. And I know when I'm in alignment and I know when I'm not. I'm not in alignment when I'm trying to do everything by myself and I'm living in my head. But I get into alignment by getting out of my head and trusting that there is another force out there, that there is this undercurrent, there is this life force, universal energy. And I just got to be that fucking surfer and sit down and wait for it and create more stillness, create more silence, and create more presence in my life. It's a really big piece of it. And I'll call myself out. I'm struggling with that right now because I'm so fucking addicted to my phone. I think all of us are. I'm just like, even today, like I just went and like sat down on a bench. I have a little bench outside my house, a little pond. I got some ducks. If you guys follow me on social media, you've seen me post about my little ducks out there. And I noticed myself just sitting there, but feeling like, oh, like, yeah, this is weird to just sit here in silence. And, I just noticed myself grabbing my phone all the time. And it's like, if we're always distracting ourselves or we're always just doing, we're never just being, we're not going to actually get those downloads as much, right? Because it's like the right download, the right idea, it can help you like skip 10 steps. You don't need to go put out 10 more songs. You need to put out one song that's actually going to make a fucking impact. But if we're just like grinding and hustling all the time and just doing all the time, then we don't ever actually get to hear that voice and tap into that deeper level of creative energy. So in a nutshell, it's important to create some space in your life to slow down. Create some space in your life to start getting out of your head. And also to like let go of what you think things are supposed to look like. When the universe is bringing ideas to you, they're oftentimes going to look very different. And this is where having the courage to trust that and to take some risks. I think a lot of the best artists that we look at, they were the artists that they were innovators and they took some risks. And so slowing down enough to hear those ideas come through, it's like they're not necessarily always going to be our ideas. Our ideas are probably very similar to what we're already hearing, the same kind of ways of thinking every day. We kind of get stuck in these patterns. But the way we break that pattern is to, slow down and start to download some of these other ideas and then ultimately have the courage to listen to them. Now, for those of you that have made it this far, thank you for rocking with me. I know there's some people that are listening to this that are like, what the fuck are we talking about the universe and all this crazy shit? I'm just trying to learn about the music business. I just want to be a fucking headliner. And I get it. Yes. But for those of you that are down to play with me a little bit and to be a bit open-minded and go down the woo-woo rabbit hole, there's some good stuff in here. There is some good stuff in here. And I mean, again, back to just to bring it back to Icon and kind of where the seed was planted for all of this for me, when you talk to guys like Slander or Jaws or Keizo or you name it, it's like all of them will trace their success back to that class, because that class for a lot of them was the moment where they said, oh, you know what? I'm going to stop trying to be like everybody else, and I'm going to just fucking do me. But in order to do me, I have to be able to listen to myself and trust myself, right? And block out the noise, block out the external noise of what everybody else is doing. That's what a lot of this is about, developing that deeper relationship with yourself and developing that deeper relationship with the muse, with your intuition, with, you know, these other ideas that want to make their way through you or to you, but we have to really learn how to start to silence those external voices. I love this shit. I get really pumped up about it. This is the kind of work I really love doing with artists and also doing for myself and with myself. I realized like I kind of got caught up in that sort of masculine side of things for a while, of just like, okay, we're kind of, I don't know, we're just kind of going through the motions and really like making moves more from the mind. And I noticed this disconnect of like, oh no, I want to get deeper into myself and into this sort of spiritual energy, into this creative energy, because honestly, that's all where all the best shit in my life has come from, hands down. Every great thing that I've ever created, my entire headliner mindset coaching group and program, even this entire podcast. This podcast was not my idea. This podcast was like, oh, I got to download one day. I was like, really? Damn. Like, logically, I'm like, damn, this kind of sounds like a lot of work. I don't know if I want to do that. But I just had to fucking listen to it. And here we are, almost 2 years later, year and a half later. Same thing with my whole group program. And I fucking love that group so much. Shout out to the headliners. You guys are amazing. Now, like I was saying earlier, you know, I would and kind of should be running another round of that particular program. But I feel very, very called to run a group around the Artist Way and to go deeper into this side of things. So the Artist Way is a 12-week workbook. It's actually kind of based on like the 12-step program. She comes from the world of the 12 steps. And so she broke it down into 12 weeks. So every week there are, you know, different concepts and exercises. It's actually a very short chapter of reading, followed by some exercises. But her main thing, one of the big things that she has you do, are daily morning pages. So whether you do the program or not, I've talked about morning pages before. Really, really recommend. It's where you sit down in every morning, right when you wake up, you write 3 pages of stream of consciousness writing. Just whatever's on your mind, you write it down and you get it out. And what it does, it just allows you to get just the kind of the clutter and the jumbled thoughts. You just get that out of your mind, but it also pulls up a lot of these thoughts and kind of unconscious, subconscious thoughts that are in the background, which for me, that's also where I've discovered a lot of the best ideas, a lot of clarity. It also just helps you be more in a flow state too. As you're writing, you're not thinking about what's coming next. You're not judging, you're not analyzing. That is such a great transferable skill to when you're in the studio. Right? When you're in the studio and you're making music and then you start second guessing, you're getting in your head and you're judging yourself. It trains you to just like get out whatever wants to come out, and you can edit it later. But like, even like right now, I've been doing that with this podcast. I'm like not really worrying about going back, and I'll make a couple edits to this, but this is pretty much me just fucking freestyling today. And so when you practice every day, let me just write 3 pages. It actually trains you to be more in the flow. Just like open up that faucet and just let whatever wants to come out. Really helps you get out of your head. She also has you do weekly artist dates, which are really cool, which is where you go on a date with yourself, by yourself. It's a date with your inner artist, kind of like with your inner child, to just go do something fun and creative and with no real attachment to results, no like, you know, real reason, just to kind of go play. And I think we lose that a lot as adults. We kind of lose our sense of play. Everything has to be for a reason. And it's like, no, just go have a fun little date with yourself for shits and giggles. So that's a really fun part of it. Now, when I run the group, we'll run through the program. We'll run through her book, but we will meet every week and have an actual coaching call. So I'll bring in stuff from the Art of Flow and we'll go deep into the Artist's Way content. But the big part of that is getting coaching, having an opportunity to take all of it a lot deeper. The real big part is having accountability. Like I said before, almost everyone I know that has attempted this process doesn't make it past week 2 or 3 because it's a lot of work. It is a commitment. And when you're doing it by yourself, you don't have anyone holding you accountable. So meeting with a group every week, having accountability, having I check in. I'm like, yo, did you do your morning pages? Everybody goes around and you say how many days a week you did your morning pages, hopefully 7 out of 7. But knowing that you have accountability, you have people that you're going to be checking in with. And then most importantly, you have a community of people that you're doing with as well. So I'm going to run another one of these groups. I don't know the exact date. Really, I'm just looking for the right people that are down to join, people that want to take their creativity deeper, that understand that it's not just about the branding and the marketing and the social media, but you got to have a real deep relationship with yourself, which honestly, that affects the branding. I think doing morning pages every day, you really get to know yourself. You really get to know what you're all about. And that does then influence how you're showing up, what your brand is all about, how you're showing up online. I think there's actually a huge connection there. But really just looking for the right handful of people that want to join me in this process. I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to be a participant. I'm not just going to be the coach. I'm going to get in the trenches with you guys. So I'm really pumped up and excited about it. Now, what I also want to do, for those of you that have been interested in joining the Headliner Mindset program, I'm going to throw that in as a bonus. Anyone that joins me with this is going to get free access to my Headliner Mindset program. I charge $1,500 for that just alone. So I'm going to throw that in for free. That's a whole 8-week course with video modules. This also includes a weekly coaching call that I do with that entire group. And that call lasts really indefinitely. As long as I'm running this program, you basically have free access to a group coaching call. And that's the space where we actually do really get into some of the marketing stuff. We get into the business stuff. Also just straight up life coaching stuff. It's a really beautiful community that we've developed there where everybody is very close-knit, very open, very vulnerable. So a really, really awesome call and community to be a part of. We also have a Discord that is really popping every day as well. One of my favorite parts of that. So it's a 12-week Artist Way program with also the Headliner Mindset program as a bonus. So if that tickles your pickle, hit me up. If that floats your boat, send me a DM on Instagram, because I'm probably going to limit this maybe to just 5 people. I think I want to keep it relatively intimate, 6 or 7 maybe at the most. So I know that there's a handful of people out there that this would be perfect for. This would be an awesome way to work together. Also an awesome way to get introduced to the Headliner Mindset community. So if you've been listening for a while and you've just been looking and waiting for your opportunity to actually get involved and to become more than just a passive listener, and you're really ready to take a deep dive into yourself and into your creativity and your creative energy, this is it. So yeah, send me a DM on Instagram if you're interested. And I hope that everybody has a kick-ass week and stay creative out there. Love you all.
In this moment, let it go, let it go, let it go. We riding with the flow.